my name is Tony. The early 70s was a time when the British film industry was thought to be dying on its last leg, soon to be flat on its arse. Enter the production team of Michael Alexander and Ilya Salkind. Michael was the father of Alexander and grandfather to Michael's son Ilya, a family concern then. They made British film, if perhaps in name only, epic, grand and great again, possibly for the last time, and with a Panamanian Spanish co-production. How did they manage it? By producing the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers, that's how. British film director Richard Lester made two key movies with the Beatles in the 60s, the seminal black and white A Hard Day's Night in 1964 and the more drug-damaged Technicolor Help in 1965. Lester had a somewhat zany streak with links to British radio comedy trio The Goons, especially Peter Sellers and Spike Milligan. He was also a fan of Alexandre Dumas' The Three Musketeers novel, and thought it would be a fab idea to film it with the Beatles in the lead roles. Now just think about that for a moment and try to imagine what that could have been like. Not easy, is it? In fact, it may defy all logical thought processes. There's a part of me that wants to see that movie and wishes it had been made, and another part that feels it would have been an unmitigated disaster, and therefore remains eternally grateful it never took off. This is mediated by the knowledge that if it had, it's very likely we'd never have got the Three Musketeers in 73 and the Four Musketeers in 74, and the world would be a much poorer place as a result. The Salkinds picked up the project and got Lester on board to direct, with famed historical novelist George MacDonald Fraser to script. Employing Fraser was a smart move, because not only was he a stickler for historical accuracy and period detail, he also had a canny grasp of comedy and satire. Throwing money around like it was going out of fashion, they assembled an eye-popping, almost pitch-perfect cast list of major character actors and stars of the time. I mean, just grab a load of this roll call. Oliver Reed, Richard Chamberlain, Michael York, Frank Finlay, Christopher Lee, Raquel Welch, Faye Dunaway, Geraldine Chaplin, Spike Milligan, Charlton Heston, Simon Ward, Roy Kinnear, Jean-Pierre Cassel, and Sybil Danning. Originally, Malcolm McDowell was slated for the role of D'Artagnan, but that didn't pan out, so it went to Michael York instead. Whilst I'm not a big fan of York's, and whilst I believe McDowell would have been a far more interesting, abrasive and adventurous choice, I can't say I visualise anyone else in the role in these two films. He manages to own it, so good on him. Yeah, two films. That raised something of an issue. You see, originally this project was intended to be one film, a 3-hour roadshow epic with an intermission. When realization dawned that Lester was going to deliver something with a running time of closer to 4 hours, the producers decided to cut the film into 2 halves and release them separately a year apart. 2 for the price of 1. What a great idea. Why, it could even double the box office profits if the gods so decreed. Celebrations at Salkind Towers were short-lived though, because the actors and the crew got a little bit pissed. They were only being paid for working on one film. Sort of like working for 2 days but only getting paid for one, if that makes sense. And that's when the legal actions kicked off, and the Salkinds lost. So now, fact fans, embedded in all movie contracts is what's known as the Salkind Clause, which specifies exactly just how many movies are getting made. History. It's great, isn't it? I'm waiting for the day when all movie contracts come with a snowflake clause, the one that states that if anyone is offended or triggered by the content of a film, they can exercise their right to complain, and then be bound with zip ties, taken out and fed to a pack of ravening wolves in a Siberian forest. There might not be any use to man, but they would probably represent a reasonable food source for your average beast. Everyone has some value, and you gotta feel sorry for those poor hungry wolves. Can but dream, I suppose. Michel Legrand and Lalo Schifrin were employed to score it, and Lester's regular cinematographer David Watkin was charged with capturing the visuals. William Hobbs was brought on board as the dedicated fight director and fencing coach. Plot-wise, the film is set in 17th century France in the reign of Louis XIII, Jean-Pierre Cassel. Throughout history, there have been some vehement power struggles between the church and the monarchy, and they've often turned somewhat nasty. Just check out the reign of Henry VIII. This is the backdrop to the Three Musketeers. Young country lad D'Artagnan Michael York travels to the capital with aspirations to be one of the king's musketeers. He's been trained in swordplay by his father. His misadventures lead him into initial conflict with three musketeers: Athos, Oliver Reed, Porthos, Frank Finlay, and Aramis, Richard Chamberlain. Through a series of events, they become comrades in arms, and D'Artagnan begins an affair with his landlord's beautiful but dim and accident-prone wife Constance, Raquel Welch, who happens to be the Queen's dressmaker. Queen Anne Geraldine Chaplin is bonking the Duke of Buckingham Simon Ward on the side. She gifts him a diamond-studded necklace as a token of remembrance. It was bought for her by the King. Perhaps not the smartest move to give it away then, you think? Power-hungry Cardinal Richelieu Charlton Heston aims to destabilise the monarchy by exposing the affair through revealing what has become of the necklace. Constance becomes aware of this plot and persuades D'Artagnan and the Musketeers to retrieve it from England. England just happening to be on the brink of war with France at the time. Richelieu, aided and abetted by his villainous underlings Rochefort, Christopher Lee and Countess Milady de Winter, Faye Dunaway, wants to secure 2 stones from the necklace, so should the Musketeers succeed in retrieving it, he will still have proof. Milady seduces Buckingham to this end. A queen and now a countess. Buckingham likes fuckingham, as they say. So it's a race against time for the Musketeers to get the mission done before the Queen has to wear the necklace at a grand ball Richelieu has persuaded the King to throw in her honour. It's not much of a spoiler to reveal that in the end they succeed, and D'Artagnan is inducted into the Musketeers and seems set for a happy ever after with Constance. But, as we know, that's only half the story. The Four Musketeers represents a shift in tone, being a darker and more serious outing with fatal repercussions for some of the key players. Its focus is the Anglo-French War and the suppression of the Protestant rebels at La Rochelle, and of course the further machinations of Cardinal Richelieu in his pursuit of power and influence over an effete and ineffectual monarchy. He wants to prevent the Duke of Buckingham sending a relief force to support the rebels, which again involves him threatening to expose his affair with the Queen. Add to this Milady's desire for revenge against D'Artagnan, the Musketeers and Constance, along with a death warrant for both parties she persuades Richelieu to sign, and some shocking revelations, consequences and outcomes, and there you have it, the bones of the story anyway. It's advisable not to spend too much time in scrutiny of the plot lines because they constitute little more than a sketchy framework to hang the action on. The diamond necklace MacGuffin is purely that, a MacGuffin. Better by far to immerse yourself in the world Lester constructs and creates before your eyes and revel in the pure escapism of the thing. The cast is stellar. Oliver Reed is at the absolute peak of his acting career, his star status, and he shines magnificently as the boozy and surprisingly complex Athos. The rest of the players border on being prime examples of perfect casting. Finlay and Chamberlain make marvellous foils, York owns his role, and the sardonic on-screen chemistry between the Musketeers is a joy to behold. The contrast in acting styles and individual beauty of Welsh, Dunaway and Chaplin sees them as a luminous and alluring trio of powerful women giving excellent performances. Welsh won a Golden Globe for her work. Christopher Lee is no less superb as the villainous Rochefort, complete with eye patch and bristling with evil intent. Charlton Heston seems to be enjoying himself as Cardinal Richelieu, even though he was previously offered the role of Athos, which he turned down. Honestly, it's hard to fault anyone. From an acting perspective, it all works. Everyone has a part to play, and they all play their parts remarkably well. Lester incorporates prominent elements of broad comedy and serious drama in a seamless way that doesn't feel jarring or at odds. He employs a unique and innovative style utilising slapstick and humour to complement rather than compromise the action. The fight sequences are nothing like the perfectly choreographed balletic and acrobatic type of swashbuckling antics you would normally attribute to classic Errol Flynn movies. Nope, they're rough and tumble affairs, messy, uncoordinated and brutal. Swords, fists, feet and any object within reach are utilised, and the sheer exertion involved in fighting is projected realistically. Combatants slip, trip, fall over, drop their swords, get it wrong. It's more like frantic roughhouse brawling with little precision and even less elegance. And it's a gripping and thrilling experience to watch. Expectations are subverted. Someone swings on a rope, chances are it will break and they'll land on their arse. There's instant suspense generated by considering if and how they will recover and survive. For the fights, it is rumoured Lester had a minimum of 5 cameras rolling throughout. On occasion, it looks like there were even more. Further evidence of Lester's commitment to realism is provided in the injuries endured by some of the cast. Oliver Reed was stabbed in the hand and had his throat lacerated, requiring hospital treatment. Michael York had his leg cut and almost lost an eye. Frank Finlay was struck in the face by a plank of wood and burned. Christopher Lee sprained a knee and pulled a shoulder muscle. Raquel Welch was punched in the face by Faye Dunaway during a fight sequence, fell and sprained her wrist. Back then, actors suffered for their art. So did the local A&E department, I'd wager. No expense has been spared on the costume and set design. There is a stark contrast apparent between the architectural splendour and obscene opulence in the realms of aristocracy and the grubby dirt and squalor of the environs of the common folk. The attention to period detail is impeccable. Watkins' cinematography proves magnificent, fluid, sweeping and expansive. Beautiful stuff. The score by Legrand and later, in Part 2, Lalo Schifrin, adapts to and enhances the visuals and the on-screen drama and buffoonery with style and panache. This is maverick filmmaking on a grand scale, back in the days when men were men, women were women, and amazingly looked like real women, and entertainment and escapism were the key words powering the creative agenda. No bones, unapologetic, zany, mad, breakneck, balls out, let's make a movie and give them something to see for their money philosophy. I mean, where else are you going to find a film in which Spike Milligan is playing Raquel Welch's husband? I saw both these films as separate releases, although they were recycled as a double bill combo later. The shift in emphasis between 3 and 4 is more pronounced when you watch them back to back. Athos' past with Milady is revealed, the unexpected deaths of some key characters occur, and the darker and more malevolent machinations at play lead into an emotionally charged execution of a villain, all add up to a more serious proposition. 4 still retains the knockabout slapstick action-packed stuff, but the comedy is tempered by a more dramatic emphasis. Also, the climactic battle and the final grueling duel between Michael York and Christopher Lee is truly punishing edge-of-your-seat stuff, worth the price of admission alone. If I'm being honest, which I am, I prefer the Four Musketeers because I suppose, at heart, I'm not all that much a jokey optimist, more a pessimistic miserablist. How well do these films stand up today? Very well, actually. They are gorgeous to look at, the action sequences uniquely staged, and even if they don't make you laugh out loud, I'd be surprised if they don't succeed in raising a smile. Minor characters like Roy Kinnear's put-upon servant Planchet are essential components, even if they primarily seem to be there to take the brunt of the jokes. They still have meaningful parts to play in the sum of things. Films like this will never be made again because they don't fit with the agenda anymore. I'm not even sure what the agenda is, but whatever it is, mass entertainment catering for a mass audience isn't a part of it. If you fancy experiencing an exciting, multifaceted, creative work of rare scope and vision, boasts a once-in-a-lifetime cast, these 2 films may well fit the bill. If it's not your thing, then it's not. I can only tell you that it's certainly mine. I've said it before somewhere or other and I'll reiterate it again here. The late 60s and early to mid 70s saw Hollywood hit a creative and innovative artistic peak. They rattled out some of the most dynamic, groundbreaking movies in the history of cinema. And on the back of that, films like The Three and The Four Musketeers were allowed to get made. Sure, the studios were chasing the money, but that didn't stop them taking risks, taking chances, speculating to accumulate. Yep, Star Wars and to some extent Jaws disrupted all that, changed the game plan, so that the pursuit of dollars made it more about finding the next Star Wars or the next Jaws, and to achieve that, a global dumbing down fucked the whole show. However, the constant factor was they still wanted the money, but without risking the losses, and for a lot of the time it was a strategy that worked, and there were still some great films made, just not as often and not quite so great. Those times when movie studios wanted the biggest box office bonanzas and TV companies sought the highest viewer ratings, those times have gone, replaced instead by a phony baloney political ideology that somehow and for some reason trumps creativity, innovation, entertainment, and even, yep, I know, shock, horror, money. Hollywood no longer cares about making money, TV companies no longer concern themselves with achieving high numbers in the ratings, so long as they can be seen to patronise the cult of woke and not, perish the thought, offend anyone. Studios make movies that no one wants to see, no one goes to see, that lose millions upon millions and alienate with abandon. TV companies make shows that no one watches, no one wants to watch, and the viewer ratings plunge lower than swamp shit. But the contemporary dogma is so powerful, so all-pervasive, they just can't stop. Something bombs disastrously, never mind, let's make another one just like it. Einstein once defined insanity as doing the same thing repeatedly in the same way and expecting a different outcome. Hello? And they've convinced themselves that the failure is not theirs, it's the audience's, it's the fans, it's the viewing public, it's their fault. It's their fault for being wrong-headed, for not getting it, for not liking it, for not wanting it. Well, pilgrims, here's the news. It isn't. They believe with nothing else on offer, we'll eventually come round, because if oranges are the only fruit, we'll have to eat oranges or go without, and so we'll eat oranges and damn well like it. Once again, amigos, here's some more news. They're wrong. There is a colossal back catalogue of brilliant, life-affirming, human-centric, entertaining movies available to us all. Movies like The Three and the Four Musketeers. Movies made when the key words and phrases weren't woke and inclusive and politically correct, but entertainment and crowd-pleasing and value for money, bang for your buck. There is a lifetime's worth of this stuff out there at the touch of a button and for a fraction of the cost. Not just films either. There are video games, books, TV series, music, endless alternatives. So what if the movie industry dies? If no one makes any new films? If the TV stations collapse into silent voids of static and dust, and no one makes any new TV shows? If the entertainment industry eats itself alive and disappears up its own arsehole? Just remember, the past is always there, exactly as it was and always will be. And ain't it a fucking good job that it was recorded and you can get a copy of it? As always, thank you from the bottom of my wallet for taking the time to watch and listen. What would I do without you? Well, this self-same thing, probably. Here's a song called Virtual Stupidity. You got just enough education. You've got just enough time on your side. You've got just enough self-awareness to let the stupid moments slide. You've got just enough communication. You've got just enough thoughts in your head. You've got just enough self-preservation to stop yourself winding up dead. Waiting anticipation for the latest compilation. Get it on a CD or a download. Now that's what I call dogma. It's an endless fucking slogma. A hedgehog getting flattened on a B-roll. You got just enough grit and gumption. You got just enough gas in the tank. You got just enough forward motion. Moving on when you draw a blank. You got just enough inspiration. You got just enough pieces of eight. You got just enough motivation to put another slice on your plate. Wait in anticipation for the latest compilation. Get it on a CD or a download. Now that's what I call stigma. It's a fucking flying pigma. A hedgehog getting flattened on a B-road. Stranger than fiction, how can it be true? Made it up a fabrication. Virtual stupidity ain't nothing new. It's a real life situation. In anticipation for the latest compilation. Get it on a CD or a download. Now that's what I call dogma. It's a cold soul-sucking bogma, a hedgehog getting flattened on a B-road. We're all getting flattened on a B-road, the road to nowhere. We're all